Okay. Hello. Welcome everyone back to the channel. My name is Rohan. I am a third year medical student studying at Cambridge. And today we've got a different style of video. I'm joined by one of my close friends, Koby. And yeah, Koby, do you want to tell us your stats?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, I'm Koby and I'm a second year medical student at Cambridge and specifically at St. Catherine's College, known as CATS. And yeah, I'm looking forward to, I'm honored to be part of this channel and this video.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, today we thought, Koby and I thought that we'd maybe share some tips about first year, specifically at Cambridge, because I know this last year has been a really weird year. So it'd be interesting to hear Koby's insights, what it was like being a fresher this year. But I'm sure he also has a lot of great tips, which kind of follows on from what we are discussing in my previous videos about freshers tips. So yeah, Koby, how in general did you find first year medicine at Cambridge?
Yeah, I think first year medicine at Cambridge was it was definitely an experience. I think it was a roller coaster. There were highs and lows, but definitely something I'm proud to have got through in then, and something I've actually really enjoyed in hindsight because I'm kind of finally getting to actually sort of specialize in medicine, which is what I'd wanted to do for the kind of during sixth form, and now I don't have to do some other subjects that I didn't enjoy as much, but now I just solely focus my energy on here, on medicine. Cambridge was, I mean, it's such a beautiful place, and it's always kind of been a dream to study there. So actually being able to live there, seeing so many kind of tourists walk by and kind of remembering, oh my gosh, that was me 2 years back, and then actually living there was an amazing experience as well, and the people as well. Yeah, they were so helpful. I think because we're all going through it together, we really stuck by one another, and it's such a supportive network. There's actually a lot of support available, not only through your friends and kind of family, but also like welfare teams, loads of different societies, which I chucked myself into, and I definitely recommend any freshers who are going to start in October to do so as well. And yeah, overall, it was a lot of fun. I think I've definitely learned a lot along the way and had to kind of mix and match like my revision techniques, things I've been doing. But in the end, I got through it, and I honestly can't wait for second year.
Wow, that thank you so much for sharing. Oh, there seems to be a bit of an echo.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's better. Maybe that's on my side. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all those things. Yeah, it's really good that you had a positive experience, and yeah, you're willing to share some tips with like the prospective medics or prospective people maybe coming to Cambridge this October. Uh, so I thought maybe because I know you've kind of thought about this a bit because you're also helping people apply to Cambridge and things um, for medicine. I want to ask some specific questions about how your experience was in first year and how you adapted, particularly in this kind of weird year. Uh, so yeah, just a general question, like how do you think that everything being online, how did that change the way you learnt? Because even though hopefully the situation is looking a bit more positive than it was this time last year, um, there could still potentially be quite a lot of online activities.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think it definitely was a shock to the system. I think especially because at A levels had kind of been cancelled and they were using teacher predicted grades. We weren't really doing any work for around 6 months, so that in itself was kind of a big break. And being chucked right into Cambridge medicine, being obviously a very intense course, I did have to kind of have that mindset shift from all the freshers activities, kind of meeting new people, to actually realizing, oh yeah, I've actually got lectures to do, I've got work to do. So I think that in itself, regardless of whether it's online or in person, is something to just be aware of, because the uni experience is amazing. It's a new experience for most people, and everyone wants to get stuck in, try out various activities, clubs, meet new friends. But I know for myself, I got a bit carried away with that and kind of probably stuck with that for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then realized, oh yeah, I've only got 4 weeks left, and I've got quite a bit of like lecture content to kind of catch up on, because I'd gone like, especially with the online format, it's very easy to go like, oh, I'll leave that to do tomorrow, and then it piles up out of nowhere. So a big tip I'd recommend is right from the get-go, make sure you're on top of lectures, and yeah, just go to everyone, even the ones that your college parents, so we'll explain that later, tell you like, oh, that might be useless or so. Just go to all of them, because I'm speaking from painful, traumatic experience myself of having to catch up a lot in the holiday times. And if you do actually just keep on top of lectures throughout the term, it makes life so much easier, and it actually allows you to enjoy the experience a lot more, because you're able to just balance your time. You're able to spend time on your work, but also de-stress and spend time with friends and in these various clubs and activities. So yeah, go to all lectures. I think that's definitely something I wish someone had just hammered home into my brain. But also in a sense, I don't want it to seem like you can't enjoy yourself in that first week, that freshers week, because it's such an important time. It's a completely novel experience. You're meeting new people. So make sure you make the most of it, and make sure that you, chuck yourself in clubs and activities. And obviously everyone goes at their own pace, but there will be someone there for you. There will be a society there for you as well. So it might take a different amount of time, but just kind of put yourself out there a bit if you can. And that will give you a really good support network for the rest of the year.
Maybe I should ask more about like the support network, because Cambridge does have a reputation for being quite intense, and rightly so. It is quite a lot of work, but as you said, there's so many different ways you can get support. We've talked about like college parents, and I guess also friendships in general, people in year above, and different staff. How did like support networks and things help you in this year?
They helped a ton, to be honest. I think if I didn't have that support and the ability to kind of de-stress, then to be honest, it would have been so difficult to get through, and I'm not sure I would have, just because there is that sheer amount of work. But because of the support network available, it is definitely manageable. So as Rohan was saying, there's friends, and there's also your family is also really important if you can, and if your family are willing to help. I'm like very grateful and appreciative for the support I've had from my family, and just kind of talking through the issues I have. But I understand that might not be possible for everyone. But there is a lot of welfare support as well through college, and I know sometimes there may be a bit of a stigma, and you may, or not even that, but you may just feel like there is one, and you may feel uncomfortable to ask for kind of welfare support from your college. But every college, as far as I know, at least at CATS anyway, has kind of a welfare team, and that will be kind of made known very clearly at the start of the year. They're honest, they're the kindest people. At CATS, we had like Welfare Tuesday or something, where we had kind of baked treats like at a specific time every Tuesday, and it was such amazing, especially because it was an online year. We could just see everyone congregate into the marquee that was up in the marquee, which was used as kind of a replacement dining area because CATS had building work. But anyway, that's a sidetrack. But everyone would just congregate in that region and have a little chit chat, kind of down a little smoothie, and also have a brownie. It was bliss. It was amazing. But that's kind of the sort of events they organize, and I think it's just making the most of them, but also not being afraid to email the welfare support team. So I'm not afraid to say that I did that a couple of times, just because the adapting to uni life is such a big change. There's so much independence, and also the online format means that you don't really get to see many people from other colleges, so that you're kind of restricted to your college. So yeah, at sometimes, especially with the online format, sometimes you could feel a bit lonely, especially when the work's really intense and you feel like you should be trying to focus that and you're not able to spend as much time with friends and stuff. Just being able to talk to kind of outside and take on an outside perspective and talking to a person who's probably heard it before and knows how to kind of either direct you or just allow you to just rant and get things off your chest. That was so helpful. So yeah, shout out to Mary if she sees this. She's was kind of the main head of the welfare team at CATS. But yeah, welfare team, kind of friends, family, also clubs and societies. So I think they're just a great way to de-stress, but also have another kind of community around you. So I know Rohan's like very into the kind of Christian Union, and that's been a great support network for him. And for me personally, I've chucked myself at rowing just kind of because that's quite a traditional Oxbridge sort of thing. So I was just like, you know what, I may as well give it a go, see if it's for me. And I've really enjoyed it. It's kind of turned into a cult at this stage in our college. But I love it. And actually next year I'm going to be a lower boat captain. So kind of teaching the next batch of rowers because I've enjoyed it so much and because there's such an amazing support network. And yeah, if anything, it's just a great way to get your frustration out off the course. You just like yank and erg and it's good fun. But I personally like to just throw myself in kind of team sports such as rowing, but also make the most of societies like Tamil Society, which is like our cultural society. I mean, there really is something for anyone. I'm pretty certain there's a Quidditch society, there's like a cheese tasting society. So yeah, I mean, they're just kind of fun events. And I'm sure with in-person teaching resuming and less restrictions being there, there'll be even more clubs and societies that'll be able to become up and running. So for both myself and Rohan, I'm sure we'll check ourselves back at the chess, the Cambridge University Chess Club as well. So that should be a lot of fun. But yeah,
thank you.
There's plenty of support.
Yeah, thanks so much just for elaborating, because as you said, sometimes there is a stigma, but yeah, thank you so much for breaking that down. And yes, Cambridge has done, at least the colleges and different institutions have done a good job of making it really clear where to get support from. And one thing I would address is, even when everything was normal, so I had like 2 terms of pretty, well, absolutely normal in first year, it still can get a little bit lonely, because in school, I felt that because you're all going to lessons at the same time and you're all having lunch break at the same place at the same time, like you make a lot of friends just because you happen to be there at the same place. But at uni, when you go to lectures, but then aside from that, sometimes there was a lot of time in your room where you're just working. And if you don't make the effort to go to like clubs and societies or actively meet up with friends, sometimes, at least for me, I remember feeling a little bit lonely. But this is where like I really found all these different support networks that you mentioned. I joined the Christian Union, and yes, that was really good just to have that, what you said, an external perspective, particularly like they often describe it as the uni bubble, and sometimes you really just get wrapped up in like, you know, tripos medicine, like fab, MIMS home. Like we'll talk about specific tips for that later, but sometimes it's just good to have that perspective, like, wow, I'm in one of the best universities in the world, and this is just honestly such a privilege, and just like soak it all in, like just enjoy the moment. Like sometimes they say that in sport, like you're playing at the highest stage, and like, okay, I'm not trying to like jazz it up so much, but like, you know, just enjoy the walk down, I don't know, like a walk in Jesus Green or something, or just go see the big colleges. Like have fun as well. And definitely the support networks, I don't know what we do about them, because and you're right, they're really experienced because they've heard it all before. But yeah, great stuff.
Yeah. But I think also just quickly to add, I think also just finding a way for yourself to de-stress. Everyone has their own way. So I know myself and Rohan were kind of into running a lot, kind of with Nicholas and Len. And that was really great in just kind of clearing my mind personally. And I actually did it more for the mental side of things than the physical aspects. And I think that's actually a sustainable reason to keep at it is, but I actually found a lot of, okay, you might call me this, that, the other, but I enjoyed, not like the pain, but I enjoyed the clarity I got. Yeah, okay, pain was definitely not, but like the clarity I got in my mind. And it really allowed me to just think over things and get, like, take a step back and get perspective. But if running's not for you, and I don't blame you if it isn't, then just even going for a walk, as Rohan said, the architecture in Cambridge is like stunning. It's just soak it up. It's, I mean, these colleges some were built in like the.
I might butt in. Yeah, as long as you don't walk past Robinson. No, I'm just kidding. We love the bricks at Robinson. It's just a bit different to the other colleges.
No, to me, it's not as bad as. Okay, no offense to any Girton watchers out here, but I mean, what are you doing if you're literally 2 miles outside the centre of Cambridge? I don't know what you're doing, but yeah, no, Robinson is great. I have been past it. But yeah, it's you just walking past the colleges, like just make sure you kind of take some time out of your day, because it can be overwhelming sometimes, the course, and you may feel like, okay, I need to kind of work non-stop, but actually taking like a 15-minute break to just walk around King's Parade, maybe getting a cheeky Jack's gelato. When you get to Cambridge, you will realize that is a true highlight. And being from Cats, which is right next to it, I feel like I got slightly addicted, but anyway, that's besides the point. But just do whatever you enjoy, and yeah, soak it up for sure. And also, a final thing, support network wise, that we kind of alluded to earlier, is college parents. They, or anyone in the year above, the years above even, that you know at Cambridge, because they are like probably the best source of advice. They've been through they've been through the process themselves, and they will give a realistic insight, because you're just talking as mates. Like there's no kind of like professor or something to watch over you guys. So they will give you kind of a download on like the highs and lows, kind of give you an advice on how to make that year better. And they will be more than happy to help in most cases as well, because they understand that having kind of the more resources available, knowing where to look for, will save your time. And that's a great thing about Cambridge, because there's like that pastoral support throughout the years, where people just pass on resources, pass on advice, and they're always often just a message away. So that really helped me. And yeah, my college parents helped me a lot, and people like Rohan, who have been amazing and giving me advice and kind of keeping me on the right path when I've decided sidetracking. So it's really helpful. So definitely keep in contact with them.
Yeah, 100%. One of the best things about university is there isn't this hierarchy between years. It's inter-year friendships are so much easier to have. Yeah. And yeah, my college parents are also amazing. And yeah, shout out to them. So I think we've talked quite a lot about the support networks, and thanks for your insights, Koby. And we've also talked about like throwing yourself into like clubs and societies.
Yeah.
So now I thought, if you don't mind, we'll discuss a bit about maybe some academic tips. So specifically for, well, okay, we'll do that a bit later. I was going to say we'll talk about the first year subjects for medicine, but first maybe some more general like study tips or time management which you found useful over the past year. Like we've talked quite a lot about how medicine is kind of intense, especially at Cambridge. But how did you manage your time? Because as you said, you were doing a lot of rowing. you didn't mention your choir, which you doing like 4 times a week. Plenty of running half marathons every month at one point. So like, how did you find that balance? Because I know if you go too far one way or the other, that in itself can lead to stress. So yeah.
That's a great question. I think it's something that we will all continue to learn throughout our medical degree. I'm by no means an expert now, but I've kind of just adapted and found what's right for me. And I think something to be aware of is don't beat yourself up if, well, I mean, you won't find a perfect schedule immediately. Like no one's able to do that. As time goes on, you'll begin to learn, oh, okay, so this is kind of where I want to focus my energy. And it's kind of picking and choosing what you want to do. So of course, the academic side of things and the actual course itself is very important to keep on top of. So it's making sure what I did was kind of schedule the things I enjoyed around that. So making sure I tried to get as much of the lectures done for that day, and also any supervision work. And yeah, making sure I was kind of prepared for supervisions as well, because they're such an amazing opportunity. You're literally kind of 2-to-1, 3-to-1 in some cases. But either way, it's small group teaching with a world-leading expert. One of my professors was literally churning out research papers every other week in like top journals such as the Lancet, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I in this presence sort of thing? So it really is a privileged position you're in, having supervisions in Cambridge, tutors in Oxford. So you want to make the most out of them. And what I do is kind of spend like half an hour beforehand kind of reviewing the lecture content for that week and making notes on any questions I had. Because often they're really flexible. They're willing to talk about any things that kind of caused a bump in your learning, and are willing to address them. So I'd make sure I kind of set out time for covering the lecture content. I'd actually recommend doing your revision notes while you're in term time, because it means the holidays are that much more enjoyable. But also, it will feel like a holiday, and you'll just be able to review stuff rather than kind of relearn things over the holiday. So what I used personally was Anki. I think, they're like, everyone ends up using them as a medical student because they're so great for just pure memorization. And I feel like at Cambridge, you can't really gloss over it, but there is a lot of kind of extra details they love to add that it's just basically pure memorization. So it's important to, and they often bring those up in MCQs, so it's important to kind of just get those sorted to get the marks for the exams. Just kind of creating cards. Also doing like things like essay plans. They're really good for the understanding side of things, because in the end of the day, we're not learning to just blurt out facts and kind of memorize. We are learning because we're actually interested in medicine. So nailing that understanding is the key thing. I mean, I like the essays to a certain extent. I feel like Kat's slightly overdid it with 3 essays a week, which are like 6 pages each or so. But nonetheless, I think essay plans are really good for understanding. But basically making sure you do your revision notes and your lectures. And then after that, you can, and like preparing for supervisions. And after that, then you can structure the things you enjoy around that. So as Rohan said, I did kind of running, choir, this, that, and the other. But I think at some stages, although now in hindsight, it may all sound perfect and I might know what I'm doing now, that really wasn't the case during term. I was always adapting and learning as I was going along. And now I have a clear plan of what I want to be doing for second year, which I just kind of suggested academics wise. But there were some stages where I really felt like, okay, I just need to get out and get away from work for a while, because otherwise I'd kind of overwhelm myself. So it's being flexible and realizing that, and taking kind of time out and going, okay, I might go for a run now, or just even a walk to clear my mind and then get back fit and finish whatever you had planned for the day. So yeah, in terms of time management, definitely planning my day kind of the night before. That's personally helped me just give a bit more structure, but also being flexible about it and not kind of beating myself up about it when things do change. But yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much. And you also touched on some of your study techniques, which were interesting and I'm sure very relatable to many of us medics. And one thing I'd add is like, yeah, you talked a lot about like understanding and memorization. And I definitely just stress that point you made that understanding is your most important priority because the memorization which follows from that becomes so much easier rather than just trying to memorize loads of individual facts. And you're right. And sometimes, there is a lot of work. So I would add, like, don't worry if you can't get all your Anki cards or revision notes done during the term. You want to mainly prioritize first hitting the deadlines, just so you're not annoying other people, but making sure your understanding is really good. So absolutely do all the lectures, but make sure you have a good idea of what they mean before you kind of dive into the memorization and making all your revision notes. Because that'll make everything that follows so much easier. And you make a good suggestion to try do the essay plans as you're going along rather than cramming them all at the end because that can be a source of stress in exam period.
Yeah, I also want to make it clear though that not everything will fall in place in the first couple of terms, and the first term especially is a massive learning experience. I learned so much about myself, about how I learn, and like making friends and that support network is actually really important. And you're super.
I would say like the first couple of years are a massive learning curve. Like I was still like last term, I was like, whoa, I was still trying to find out what methods. I mean, I knew in general what I had to do, but there's still, as you said, adaptation is the key. And some of you might have watched my video on stress. And one of the reasons was I really did have to change the way I was learning for those exams just to keep up with the pace and balance how much I wanted to go in depth compared to the breadth. And that's a big thing with a content heavy course like medicine.
And I think the overarching thing is just being accepting and being flexible because change is, no one likes change, right? Everyone likes to be comfortable and doing their thing. But sometimes it's needed. A lot of the time it's needed. And if you can accept that and go, like, okay, this isn't really working now, and then reaching out to your support network, especially like your college parents and people in the years above, and kind of getting a wide array of different kind of revisions tools, and then you can like give each one a try and see. Everyone has a different thing that works for them, and then you can select the one that works for you. And I think your supervisors and kind of teachers are actually really understanding of this in the first couple of terms, especially the first term. They're kind of, well, obviously it depends on who your supervisor is, but they do realize it is a massive jump and like learning experience, especially in that kind of first term, as I said. And then after that, you'll still start changing things, but you'll begin to have a foundation of what you want to be doing. But I just want to stress, like, don't be worried or anything if by the end of the first term you still have no clue what you're doing, because honestly that was me as well. I was still working out what to be doing, and with the online course as well, it was kind of made more difficult because you aren't able to interact with other students in your year, and also there's not as much of a strict schedule, so I think following a schedule as best as you can is really helpful, and that comes with kind of going to your lectures on time and all that. But also listening to your body and kind of listening to yourself and taking care of yourself, because taking care of yourself is kind of the most important thing in the grand scheme of things. But that's all.
Great. Thanks so much. So I think if you have time, if we can discuss like the three big subjects in first year. So that's anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. Remember them names. So should we start with anatomy? Because I guess that's the classic medical student subject. Like, um, what was your general approach to anatomy? I remember we had a discussion about this last year,
Yeah.
and yeah, what was your general experience? Because um, at least in Cambridge, we learn anatomy through dissection, and
Mm.
even the way we're examined, it's quite based on accurate
Perfect.
dissections and prosections
Yeah.
of the anatomy.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like anatomy is probably the biggest jump for me from secondary school because even within the medical course, it is very independent. Yeah, I feel like it's very self-directed, the teaching they give. And yeah, you do have dissection, full body dissection, which is great in Cambridge. I mean, some people prefer full body dissection, some people prefer prosection, but it's a new experience, I suppose. I suppose the slightly sad thing this year was that we literally only got to see our donor like 2 or 3 times for the whole year. So it was, yeah, we just didn't really, it kind of just felt like we were going in there and just for the sake of it. But it wasn't really like continued kind of, yeah, learning through the donor. And also we would normally, from my understanding, in a non-COVID year, be in kind of teaching groups and look at what dice. I mean, Rohan's more better suited to talk about this, but you'd kind of see a demonstrator kind of dissect, and then you'd also talk amongst your group, and there'd be more of a group feel, but because of COVID, it'd only be one person kind of rotating. So I would kind of, let's say, dissect kind of the skin, and then next time I'd come in, all the nerves and muscles would have been dissected by another student. So then, yeah, it just kind of felt a bit random, but that's because of COVID. But that kind of meant that dissections were unfortunately not as useful as they would have been in a normal year. Obviously, I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity, but it did mean it was very self-directed. And because of that, I ended up having to I was very lost in the first term, to be honest. And I only really figured out what I was doing from the second term onwards. And that was by asking advice from people like Rohan and also kind of supervisors as well. And I ended up using this website called KenHub that has a kind of lot of resources online. And they also have they also utilize like active recall, spaced repetition and all that by kind of quizzing you after you've learned a specific module. So I really like that. But then again, it didn't really help so much in the prosection side of the exam where you actually need to kind of see like a real life, where you kind of need to identify things within a mess rather than just a kind of a very basic image. So for that, atlases were really useful. And actually, I use the atlas that Rohan was kind enough to send over to me, which is like the Rohan Atlas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, with anatomy, I guess with any subject, but particularly with anatomy, because it is so different to secondary school, would definitely try buckle down on the exam technique and know how you're going to be assessed. Because there's no point just learning what all the things are called and like what the nerve supply, what the blood supply is, if you don't know what they actually look like. Because in the exam, you first need to identify it before you answer the questions. So definitely I found that kind of appreciating how things look in an idealized form. So in very diagrammatic things, like to use KenHub, I use like Teach Me Anatomy.
Yeah.
Just any resource which you like. It doesn't. There's also this app called Visible Body, which was quite a useful resource. And then looking at prosection images, or like in a dissection room, you might look at the different parts on your donor for whatever area you're studying, and then applying that when you come to answer exam questions. So yeah, that was really helpful. And you're right. It is a bit of a shame that because of COVID, you only got to that continuity wasn't really there. And yeah, I would add that hopefully when it goes back to normal, you'd have your dissection group and yeah, you can learn off one another. We frequently used to like quiz each other, and even when there's not much to do, we used to try go find another specimen just to look like a pro section image. We'd always try find something useful to do, even if we weren't actually dissecting on the donor itself. Um,
Yeah. And I think just a couple of last things to add for anatomy. I think, as Rohan was saying, like the importance of just kind of talking with others and like that's kind of what I missed in the dissection group, kind of talking with other people, learning from one another. But you can still do that within your college. So I think one of the great things about Oxbridge is that they kind of split within multiple colleges. So you, as well as having the wider year, so you have kind of that support network within your college, and you actually get to meet even non-medics and like people from other subjects and become close with them. But then you can also go to like lectures and you have group chats and whatnot, where you can connect with various other medics within your year. But for anatomy, I also actually asked various people in my college who were doing well and asked what were they doing. And a mate of mine suggested this kind of video, these short videos on this website called Acklands, which was actually provided by the medical school, but I hadn't actually looked into much. So what I definitely recommend is looking at the resources that your medical school is actually providing you with for free and making the most of them, because as Rohan was saying, you have Visible Body, and then you also we have Acklands that was given. And then I really found Acklands as a really nice summary of all the content after I learned it myself, because it was almost like a professor was kind of guiding me through it. So different things work for different people, but just be aware of all the resources you have available, and then and make the most of them. But in order to do that, it's just about asking around and being proactive. So.
Yeah, I like to call it like a reasonable audit, and yeah, this applies to pretty much every subject. Just at the start, have a bit of a nose around on all your different departmental web pages, because there's often a lot of useful stuff which you won't even be aware there are until you actually look for them.
Yeah.
So thanks so much. And I would ask a bit about essays, but I think we're running a little bit short on time, and I want to talk about like the other subjects as well. So if you had any essay advice for them, I guess you could say. But how about for biochemistry? How did you find biochemistry? I want to ask about the practical paper as well, because that is famously quite difficult. So yeah, how did you find MIMS this year?
Yeah, so MIMS was interesting. I think they start off with metabolism, which is a lot of learning of kind of these very long words or names of molecules. So yeah, my brain was kind of going like, okay, what is going on with this? I think it was kind of very similar to, I mean, it is biochemistry, but it's similar to kind of what we learned in some aspects of biology in A level. So yeah, a lot of people don't like it, but for some reason I kind of enjoyed it at the start because I was like, okay, at least I can somehow relate this back to what I've already learned beforehand. And well, it was kind of a bit of rote learning, but you also learn about kind of enzymes and kind of the different cycles, like urea cycle, like glycolysis and all that. So there were kind of familiar stuff here and there that you'd heard from before, and it was great to kind of see a build up from what I previously learned. So that was nice. And I think for that especially, I really appreciated Anki, because as I said, there are these massive words, and in order to hammer them home, it really is about having spaced repetition. And that's why I really appreciated Anki's kind of inbuilt spaced repetition algorithm. And then you can obviously make it active recall by kind of typing in your questions and all that. But yeah, it started off with metabolism, which was probably the more difficult side of things personally. And then it kind of went into genetics and stuff like that, which I personally had more of an interest in because I'd had a look at that before uni. And also I just felt it was a bit more understandable and a bit less abstract, because sometimes learning all these massive molecules and then going like, okay, when will I ever tell a patient that you've got this wrong with you? And that's why you've got diabetes or something.
there were a lot of references to diseases which like 1 in 10,000 or even fewer would have.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And like you would never actually, when talking to a patient, you want them to understand and be informed about their decision. So you'd never actually say this massive molecule name. You just kind of talk in layman's terms. But obviously, I do understand why they teach us that. It's important to understand as a clinician what you're diagnosing before, rather than talking nonsense. But yeah, sometimes I'd struggle a bit with that. So I think with that, it's just about powering through and kind of working together with your college, the fellow medics in your college, and not being afraid to ask around. If there's someone who you feel like is kind of doing better than you, just ask them, okay, what are you doing? And more often than not, they'll be more than happy to help. So it was also quite cute because we'd often, as classic medical students, we're top class crammers as well. So we'd often be cramming our supervision work last minute the night before in the library. So there have been quite iconic moments where I think we've got a 2 a.m. chicken wings chat where we were halfway through an essay and then ordered chicken wings for like a group of 4 of us there. And although that may sound traumatic, it's actually one of the most iconic and funnest moments of Michaelmas, so first term, because you're all kind of in it together. And I think making the most of that support network, which will be even better in years to come because restrictions will be eased. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, that's kind of, I use mainly Anki for biochemistry MIMS, and yeah, that helped a lot.
Yeah. One thing I would just add, like people within your college medics group, or even just in the wider university, people have different flares for different subject. So definitely, you can go to someone, don't be afraid to ask if you can see the essay, if you know that they got a lot higher mark than you, because that's just a great way for you to learn. And then you can then return the favor if you're better at another subject, or yeah. So definitely people have different strengths, and often when it's a peer saying something to you in simple terms, like I even to this day, I vividly remember something to do with the regulation of iron and iron response elements. And I didn't understand what the lecturer was doing. He was just like, oh, it's so simple. He showed some diagram, like waffled for 30 seconds and moved on. But then it was only when I asked another medic and he just explained it simply to me, about what situations that you want to break down iron or iron binding protein. Like it was only when I asked him that all of a sudden he clicked, and then it just became so easy for me to just understand. And then maybe one thing when you're talking about metabolism, it kind of made me remember is like for the essays in biochemistry, it's very easy just to get into the habit of like regurgitating the pathways, but that's not really what they're after. I do remember doing quite poorly in some essays because I just, drew out the pathways and just explained it all in words again. Basically, you want to be saying like about how the pathways are regulated. And, okay, you might learn like glycolysis and Krebs cycle, but like, why do you want to do that? In what situations you want to do that? Like, it won't be suitable to do Krebs cycle at all times if, like, I don't know, you have low oxygen or something. Yikes, I can't remember that much. But you really want to be talking about the regulation of these processes. That was one tip which kind of flashed into mind.
I think something that, well, in regards to essays, that was often not mentioned but low-key kind of expected as well, was a relation to the clinical application, if you can. That's not expected, but it's something that can really boost your marks and show that you have an understanding of the topic and why we're learning it. And as Rohan was saying, kind of not regurgitating, actually kind of understanding it and where it'll be used. And then also its clinical applications. I feel like I kind of fell foul to not copying off the textbook, but kind of rewording some stuff and kind of basing my answer a lot off what I kind of read in the textbook, and then regurgitating it, obviously within my own words to avoid like plagiarism and whatnot. But I think that is not the most conducive to actually understanding and learning. So just taking that extra kind of hour or so to really make sure you understand the topic and can, write the essay in kind of your own words and make sure you truly understand it is really important.
Something really funny came into my mind. I haven't told you this story. Maybe I need to cut this, but you know, like the metabolism bit, like fat metabolism.
Yeah.
And like, there was this one guy in the year above who was the most iconic medic. Like, I have to take you to meet him one day. He's just an absolute like
legend.
Oh my gosh! And he did his essay about fat metabolism. So we all like did a standard one.
Yeah.
We wrote about like beta oxidation, free fatty acid like synthesis or whatever. And like he's talked about like Kofi, the starving kid, and I like took Kofi on each stage of the journey as he went further and further in starvation and what metabolic changes. So okay, and okay, maybe the tone wouldn't suit an academic essay, but you can see how he was linking like what we're learning, like really molecular stuff, to a real world situation. If someone was starving, what would actually happen to them? And yeah, just this is something which we might cover in the second year video if we have time. Like, how can we link what we're learning to like everyday phenomena? So there was this one thing which I didn't remember the explanation, but why does a starving person, why do you not feed them protein immediately? It's something to do with like it's quite metabolically expensive to break down, so it can actually be detrimental to give them a protein-rich diet first. You want to first give them like simple sugars. It's these kind of interesting things which actually, if you can get them in your essays, can show that you actually have a deeper understanding. But yeah.
Wow, that no, I need to meet the student ASAP because that'd be a first class essay in my eyes. But I think that also brought to mind what my DOS, so Director of Studies, was saying that often most people who've kind of learned the course and just know it well, they often get a 2-1. But the people who get that first is the people who go kind of above and beyond sort of thing. And actually, often like 2-1 essays are really similar and are kind of talking about the same pathways and whatnot. But the first class essays, they're all normally quite different and unique. That doesn't mean be unique for the sake of it. But if you can kind of make it unique and make sure that you tie in like that clinical application whilst showing a clear understanding and kind of bringing in any wider reading you've done, then that's often how you aim for this stuff. I mean, whereas yet again, in a much better position to talk about that than me. Yeah.
Okay, we've been at it for quite a while. Do you have anything to add about HOM, so physiology? Anything different to the other?
Just one more thing to add with regards to MIMS and actually HOM, just all the subjects in general, is one resource that really helped me, which is a YouTube channel called Ninja Nerd Lectures. I found them annoyingly late in the year, and it's going to be one of the first things I tell my college children. But their videos were honestly amazing because they really summarize the content of key systems such as like cardiovascular physiology and then metabolism. So that's kind of physiology, HOM, and biochemistry, MIMS, respectively. They summarized that so amazingly and it really helped me. Like those 20 minutes videos really helped me understand the content. So then I could go about memorizing those like minute points that Cambridge love to add. But the thing with the Cambridge kind of lectures is that sometimes they can be a bit, they can kind of brush over some important points quite quickly and then spend a lot of time on the researcher's own kind of research and stuff and get a bit sidetracked. And then you're like, okay, what's kind of going on? And sometimes it's not the best sometimes you kind of have to revisit stuff to understand. And that's why kind of summary videos such as those that are available in Ninja Nerd Lectures YouTube channel, I promise I'm not being sponsored by them, are incredibly helpful. And they helped me so much. And just get that basic understanding, and then I could build upon kind of the other, like the flowery points to kind of add a garnish to my essays, I suppose, and reach for those higher grades. But yeah,
I think that's everything that we wanted to cover. Thank you so much for explaining in depth all your tips, both like about like the non-academic side of Cambridge, but also like some of the specifics about medicine first year. And we really do hope this video has been useful. And I'm sure if you have any questions for either myself or Koby, just drop them down in the comments below, and we'll definitely try answer them as best we can. So yeah, that's this video. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you guys found this useful and enjoyed it. And then, yeah, as Rohan said, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that I put in the comments. And yeah, also one last thing I kind of wanted to add earlier as part of the non-academic advice is that imposter syndrome is something that's completely natural. And a lot of people will feel like they're out of place in an institution like Cambridge, which has a tradition for being so high achieving and kind of blurting out all these Nobel Prize laureates and whatnot. But it's important to kind of just appreciate the amazing work you've done to reach the stage, first of all, and then also realizing that although it may seem like other students are doing amazingly in this and other than the marks they're getting, that's kind of the highlights you're almost seeing. You're not seeing kind of the times they may be crying about the work and struggling themselves on another module. So often as humans, we're like attracted to all the extraordinary things we see, and then always strive to like improve ourselves, sometimes to an extent where it's a bit too much, and then we forget to accept ourselves and like appreciate the hard work we're doing ourselves. So it's just not being demoralized by that, and actually seeing people who are doing better than you in a certain module as an inspiration and kind of a source of advice, and just asking them, okay, what are you doing? Can you give me some tips? But not feeling like an imposter. And kind of what really helped me is having more of a shift to like a growth mindset, where I was being more willing to take on constructive criticism from supervisors, and I didn't let the marks and what other people got like define me. But I just was happy to work at my own pace, but always willing to be proactive and kind of, okay, if something didn't go right, just accept it, but then ask, okay, how can I go about improving myself? And I think that's just a general tip for any aspect in life, really, that's kind of helped me. But especially with medicine at Cambridge, I've heard a lot around the place, and myself included, I sometimes felt like a bit of an imposter and like, oh, do I really deserve this place? But then by kind of shifting this mindset and going like, you know what, I'm here now, I'm going to make the most of it. Yeah, that's really helped me enjoy my time more and not question myself as much.
Oh, so much for that. Like growth mindset. I'm sure Angela Duckworth, she would be very happy with your explanation there. Yeah, thank you so much, Koby, once again. Sorry for kind of rolling the outro a bit too early. If you have anything else to add, feel free to do so.
Okay. Otherwise, I'm done with my waffle now. But yeah. But no, thank you for kind of asking the questions, Ryan, and kind of also giving the students the opportunity to learn and have advice from resources like this, because I'm sure they appreciate it.
Cool. I think we should wrap it up there.
Yeah.
See you guys. Bye.
See you. Bye.